Hi guys, what we're going to start on for, I believe this is Onshape 7. I might be mistaken about the number, but we're going to make some Lego pieces. So they have circular protrusions that are equally spaced so that when we have a shelled out piece like this, it will fit in various different ways on top of those pegs. All right, so here we go. Let's talk about the first thing you're going to do is in your main Onshape menu when you log on. Now, I already have one, but can you please create a document? So you're going to say create document and call that document last name, first initial, Lego project. And when you open that and go in there, now I already made a piece, so you'll see that. You'll have nothing there. Start with a part studio. If it doesn't already bring you into a part studio where you see the planes to sketch on, go ahead and start a new part studio by clicking on the plus symbol, and we're starting here. All right, now usually we've been drawing on the front, but I want to make a base plate. You know those big green base plates? I mean, maybe I'm old and that's what it used to happen, but that you can build on top of. We're going to make one of those. So instead of sketching on the front, I'm going to sketch on the top view because that's kind of a base. So as usual, we will sketch on the top view. And as usual, I personally don't like the planes all showing, so I will right click on them and say hide all planes. And now we're looking at the top view. So we got sketch one in the browser. As always, I'm going to bring my view normal or perpendicular by clicking on the view cube to that plane. Now, we got to do a little bit of thought and a little bit of math. We need the shell of that Lego to fit on all sides of the peg that sticks up evenly. So here's what I've come up with. We're going to start with a rectangle and draw that out. Click will bring up your values, and we're going to make it 0.5 by 0.5. Remember, if for some reason you didn't get your values in there, you can go back and use your dimension tool. So we have a 0.5 by 0.5 square. Inside of that square, we're going to make a circle. So I'm going to click the center point circle command. Now, this is kind of important. If you hover around, see how that little square shows up? That square is the midpoint of that line. And if I drag my mouse down after doing it, see that dotted line that shows up? That means I'm currently going to lock myself vertically to the midpoint of that. If I hover over here, see the other one shows up? So if you move your mouse around enough and those two lines are showing up and then you click your center point, you are now locked to those midpoints. Click again to set your circle, and finally we're going to enter the dimension. 0.25 is going to be the size of the circle. I'll talk about why in just a moment. All right, and if you did this correctly, you should see that all of your lines are black and not blue, which means that it's fully constrained and it can't be moved at all. All right, if you need to pause the video, do that to get to this point. All right, we're going to finish our sketch now. Okay. Those little points showed up for me. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I haven't figured out why they show up sometimes and why they don't show up others. So you can, if you don't see those little dots, it's okay as long as it's lined up. All right, now we're going to extrude. I turned it a little bit so I can see it. Now it asks you what you want to extrude, and we're going to click only on the outside part. I don't want the hole in the middle. So if you accidentally click the hole in the middle, we got to keep clicking until, no, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. Yes, I do want just that with the hole in the middle. And we're going to make it a depth of 1/8 of an inch, which is 0.125. Enter will get you a preview. Enter again, we'll get that. Now we've got a square with no peg. Okay, we've got to make the peg. In order to do that, we're going to reuse that sketch. So go to sketch 1 over here in your browser and turn it back on by clicking the eyeball. That shows your sketch again. Now we can extrude again. This time we're going to choose that inside part only, and we're going to extrude that to 0.25. So it sticks up. Now you should only have one part down here. If for some reason you have two parts, it probably means on that extrude 2, you did a new part down here instead of an add. So if you have to go back into your extrude, I'm going to show that again by double clicking on the second extrude. If you showed more than one part, it's because you made a new part instead of simply adding solids to there. So we want it to say add, so that down here it says just part 1 and not part 1 and part 2. All right, so now we have our basic piece. I'm going to turn off the sketch because it just annoys me. I also don't like to see the origin point. I tend to like to turn things off. All right, so this is our base of our base, right? It's what's going to get duplicated. So now that we have this part, we're going to make ourselves our big old base to build on. To do that, we're going to create a rectangular pattern or a linear pattern. So up here in your toolbar, look for the thing that looks like the Rubik's Cube. And it asks what we want to pattern. Now, right now, it's a part pattern, and that's what we want because we want to pattern this part. So what entities do we want? You can either click on the part itself, or you can click over here on part 1. Either way works. So I think I'll click on part 1. Now it's got a pink thing saying, hey, click that to activate it. And what direction would you like to go? You need to choose a line that is on the top of this, not the whole thing, but just a line is highlighted. That one or that one. It doesn't matter which way you start. And click on that line and notice it's giving me a little preview of what we've got. We've got an instant count of 2 going in one direction. Now, I want to add a second direction because I'm going to go a whole bunch. We're going to add a second direction. It says what way you want to go. I already went that way. Now I need to go the other direction and click on the line that's perpendicular to the first way I went. Okay. Now, right now, nothing happened because I'm only showing an instance count of 1. So if I change that to a 2, you'll notice it will be making that as a pattern that's 2 one direction, 2 the other direction. Now, these are not together, and I want them to be together. So remember that this part was 0.5 wide, so I want my distance each way to be 0.5 and not the default of 1.5. Enter gives us a preview. Cool. Now, before I finish this, notice that down here it's making 4 separate parts. I don't want 4 separate parts. I want this to be one big old part. So I'm going to add them together so that I still only get one part. Now this is going to be a big old base plate. You get to decide, but I think I'm going to make mine 10 by 20. So instead of 2 on the first one, I'm going to make it 10. Enter will give you a preview. And then the other way, I'm going to make 20. Enter will give you a preview. Second to load. Whoops, I'm zooming the wrong way. And there's my base plate. All right. Remember, part 1 is going to be all I get. If I have a whole bunch of parts, if I was doing new, look at all these parts that are showing up down here. I don't want all those different parts. So choose add. And notice it will blend all of those things together. Okay, so there's our base plate. Check. Cool. All right. Now, 2 things before we're done. Actually, 3 things, because I'm going to show you something. This looks weird to me because of the perspective it's in. One of the things you can do, and then this is totally up to you, is to turn perspective on by clicking on the little view or the cube that's right next to the view cube. gives you some different visual things. If you turn perspective on, it kind of makes it cool that you can see that in a perspective view instead of the other type of view that it has. So that's up to you to do that. Now, before we're done, we've got two more things to do. We're going to make this out of the appropriate material, and we're going to make it a color. So while we're hovering on this anywhere, right click, and you'll get a menu that includes edit material or assign material and edit appearance. So let's assign a material. Now I happen to know, because I looked it up, that Lego pieces are made out of what's called ABS. It's a type of plastic that has the right properties and just the right springiness and all that for being a Lego. So right now, when I clicked on assign material, there's nothing here, right? So the drop-down menu gives us all sorts of stuff. And if you scroll down, one of those choices is ABS that you can click on, and it is now making this part out of ABS. Now you won't notice anything that changed, but it did change the properties in terms of what this thing weighs and different properties of it. Now, oops, I don't know why it told me I'm not connected. Okay, hold on. Might have had a little internet issue there. Hopefully we're back. Now we're also going to make this out of a material. So again, right click on the part. We're going to, oh, sorry, not the material. We're going to edit the appearance. Okay. Now, I can remember a Lego set from when I was a kid. These base plates were usually green. So I'm going to make mine out of that weird green material. You can choose whatever color you want. And there is my base plate. Now, we've been doing naming conventions where I asked you to do your last name first, but as long as your document is named with your last name and first initial, you can just call your part Lego base. So when you right click on Part Studio and hit rename, let's just call it Lego base. You don't need to put your name in the actual part. So, capitalize L. All right. All right, now there's our base. We've got 3 more parts to make. All right, if you want to take a picture of this now, don't forget to include your name of your document up here and also the browsers, because I need to see how that you built this in the way that I asked you to build it. All right, let's start a new part. Click on the plus. We're going to create a part studio. We're going to start a new piece. This time we will sketch on the front. I again like to get myself perpendicular to the view. I'm going to hide all of those planes. Now this time we're going to make a 0.5 by 1 by 2 inch block. That's going to, excuse me, serve for the kind of the base of the Lego. So we're going to use our corner rectangle command. Again, make sure that little square shows up. That means I'm hooking up to that origin point. Drag our box out, click. The first number is going to be 1 inch wide, and the second number is going to be 0.5 inches tall. Enter. And we're going to extrude that to 2 inches. Finish the sketch, extrude that shape, move so you can see it, to 2 inches. All right. Again, I don't like seeing the origin. I'm going to turn that off. Now we've got our base. We need to put our pegs on here. So we're going to sketch on the top surface of this. Again, let's bring our view perpendicular to this. I'm going to flip it sideways just because I think it's easier that way. So 6 clicks on this guy will get us 90 degrees on these arrows that will flip it for you or rotate that part for you. All right, now you're going to have to probably pause in this sometimes. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create our 2 circles first. I am going to just click where I think it's going to go approximately, drag, click, and it is going to be a 0.25 circle, just like our other ones were. Now this next step is kind of important. So I'm still in the circle command. I'm going to hover over this circle. I'm not clicking, I'm just hovering. And see that line that comes down? Now I'm sure that I'm going to be exactly aligned vertically with that other circle. Click approximately where it's going to go. Move your mouse. Click again. And again, it's 0.25. Okay. Now, I'm going to escape by right-clicking and say escape circle, which gets me out of the command. You also could have hit escape a couple of times. Now notice that if I grab this and move it, those two circles are locked together vertically. Okay, they're not locked together in any other way because I can move that up and down, but they are aligned because I made it that way. Now, this is kind of cool because we're going to make it the same spacing as our base. So how to do that? We're going to use the dimension tool. And what's kind of cool about Onshape versus other programs I've used is you can actually, instead of going from the center point, you can go from the outside of the circle to the edge. And that distance is going to be 0.125, 0.125, enter. Okay. And that gives us a distance from the top of the circle to the outside, a 1/8 of an inch diameter. Now, we're also you can choose one of two ways of doing this. We can either say, what's the distance between these two, or from the outside edge again, and it will make all of the spacing correct. Let's go in between. I'm still in the dimension command. Click on the circle. Click on the circle. I'm going to come out here. You could go in here. It doesn't really matter. Things are going to start getting a little crowded. Click. And that again is 0.25 in between the circles. And you might want to pause and just get to that point. The last thing that we will do is we only need to do this once because remember these are aligned, is we're going to go from the circle to the edge. Again, I'm in the command for dimensioning. Click 0.125. And notice that everything's black because everything's held in place. So again, it was 1/8 of an inch from the circle to the edge, also from that circle to that edge, 0.125 in between. Now, I don't need to do this down here because it would do what's called over constraining the sketch. In fact, if you try it and click here and click here and click out there and put 0.125, notice it turns everything red. That's because what you're doing is you're over constraining it. We don't want to do that. And now it says sketch could not be solved. So I'm going to undo that last dimension because it doesn't need to be there. Everything's already turned black. All right, cool. So we've got our two pigs. We are now going to go ahead and do the next thing. Make sure you've gotten here. Pause if you have to, because the next thing is a little bit more complicated. Okay, I need to make a pattern out of these. Now, I want you to do it exactly the way that I'm asking you to do this, and I'm going to look at the browser to make sure you did. So right now I'm in 0 commands. I've hit escape a couple times or right-clicked and hit escape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag a box by holding the mouse button down kind of up here in the corner and pulling while I'm holding the mouse button down to select those two circles, but only those two circles. Then, after I've highlighted them, I'm going to come up here to linear pattern. Remember, we did that with a solid earlier that looked like a Rubik's Cube, but we're in a sketch now, so it looks slightly different. I'm going to click on that. Now, this is where things start getting pretty complicated. And you're going to have to look at what's happening here. Right now, it's saying, if I zoom out, this arrow that pops up has a number associated with it. It wants to do this a total of 3 times. The first one, second one, third one. I don't want that to happen. I only want it to go 1. So I double click on that number and hit 1. Okay. Now, the other one only went one way. Now, you might have something different going on. Mine currently is pointing to the left, which means that if I put in that I want to have 2, notice that it comes over here. I don't want that. I want it to go the other way. So I'm going to grab this arrow and drag it so that it goes the other way. So I held the mouse button down to drag it. Now, notice it shows that there are 2 again, and it shows a distance of 0.73. That distance needs to be 0.5, not 0.73 or whatever it is you're showing. Now watch what happens when I hit enter. It went to the other side. That's because it's seeing this direction as positive. So what needs to happen is, and I know it's getting a little crowded, so try and follow along here, is I'm going to double click on that distance and make it a negative 0.0 or 0.5, not 0.05, oops, negative 0.5. Now it's going the correct direction. So let's make sure that we've got this right before we finish things. I've got in that direction 1 because I only want the one that exists. In this direction, I've got the 2, and I've got a distance of 0.5, which is actually negative 0.5 because the arrow was pointing the other direction in the first place. Okay, this all has to be right before we can say okay. Okay, and I can escape linear pattern, which made it go away. Okay, I'm going to have to do that one again. I thought it would leave it. All right, again, I'm going to drag a box, linear pattern. I only want 1 going this direction. Double clicking on the number 1, enter. This one I want to have 2. I'm double clicking on the number 2, enter. And then my distance is, again, double clicking on the distance, is going to be negative 0.5. There we go. Now, notice it gives me a little picture. That's what I was ignoring before, that says clicking right, or excuse me, left clicking on the mouse will say, okay, I like this. Click, cool, and places it. Now I know there's going to be 4 more, but we're going to do that in a different way. So you should see all this. If you have to go back and watch the video again, watch it again, because it has to be right. Finish the sketch. And now we're going to extrude those 4. That, and that. And remember, our distance was 8.125. All right. Now, things are going to speed up a little bit because the rest of this is kind of easy. So let's talk about how to make the rest of the pattern. All right, this is going to be super easy, folks. So here's what's going to happen. We need to put a plane right through the middle of this thing that we're going to use as a mirror tool. So here's how to do that. Up here where it says plane, you might have to use the drop-down menu to get the plane command. We're going to click plane. That brings up our menu of what we want. Right now it's offset. I want to create, though, in the drop-down menu, a mid-plane. When you click mid-plane, a mid-plane will show up between any 2 parallel planes that you click on. So I'm going to click on this end, flip it around, and click on that end, and it will put a plane right through the middle for me. Okay, check. Now, the next part's pretty easy. We're now going to take these 4 pegs that we just did and extrude number 2 and mirror them. So here's how to do that. Up here at the toolbar is mirror. It asks what entities you want to mirror. Now, again, I don't want a new part. I just want to add to the existing part. And the entities I want to mirror are, I want the extrude 2. Oops, I needed to click on it. Click on extrude 2. I'm not sure why it's not. Oh, I know why, because I have it at part mirror instead of, I need a feature mirror because I'm not mirroring the whole part. I'm mirroring the feature. Okay, So now features to mirror are extrude to. There we go. Now it asks me what mirror plane I want. I'm going to click that to activate it. And I'm going to click on plane 1. And it gives me a little preview. And I say, cool. All right. And there's our 8-piece. Now, if you did this right, your browser will say sketch, extrude, plane, and mirror. And we're going to do one last thing. I'm going to turn this plane off because I don't want to see it anymore. Now, if you'll remember, the first one was hollow underneath. So we're going to hollow this out. And that command is called shell. Up here at the top, if you look through some of these different things, one of them is shell. And you can tell it looks like something that's been shelled out. Click on that. And it's going to ask you what face you want to remove and what thickness you want your shell to be. You can make it just hollow where it doesn't even remove any face, but we want to remove this face. You have to click on the bottom of the part, click on it, and it will shell that out for you. Now remember, our thickness, though, is going to be 0.125. Enter gives you a preview, and there's our shell. And again, we will make this out of ABS, right click. I want to assign material, drop down menu for instead of none, we want it to be ABS. Yes, and then make this whatever color you want. Edit appearance, I think I'll make mine blue. And down here at the bottom, with whatever one we're working on for Studio 2. That's weird. It's showing me what it was at a few steps ago. Rename and just call that 8 tab. And we're going to make a few others also. All right, again, get your part over here. Make sure that it goes in the same order in the browser, and always have your name showing in the screenshot that you take. All right, 2 more to do. They're going to be easier than we've gotten so far, and we will do those in a different video.